views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hola everyone, and welcome to Open BxRx Remote, brought to you from my living workspace, Executive Suite. I'm Rhina Valentin, your host of Café con Leche every Friday. Here's what's coming up in today's show. Leading these off, we discuss the COVID Omicron variant and the importance of vaccines and booster shots when we speak to Montefiore's infectious disease specialist, Dr. Eric A. Meyerowitz. After that, we'll be joined by the United Federations of Teachers Director of Staff, Anthony Harmon, to speak about how Omicron is affecting the safety of teachers and students as schools remain open. Then we'll speak to interior designer and transformational coach, Gitana Torres, to discuss personal empowerment through home healing. Later on in the show, Bobby C brings us an up-to-date with the latest headlines in the world of sports. And lastly, this week's Open Artist Spotlight shines on legendary hip-hop dance company Circle Souljahs, followed by a performance at the end of the show. So sit back y prepárate. All this and more is headed your way, because now we are officially open. Hey everyone, and welcome to Open. I'm Rhina Valentin, your host of Café con Leche for the next hour, inviting you to get social with us online. That is, tweet us and follow us on Instagram at BronxNet TV, and like us on Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. And of course, while you're there, follow moi on Twitter, FB, Instagram, Insta Stories, LinkedIn at Rhina Valentin. So as 2022 begins, we are met with yet another COVID strain, the Omicron variant. And as it rapidly spreads throughout New York City and the country, according to the New York Times, there are 4.19 million cases in New York State alone. Many people vaccinated or unvaccinated are left with questions about what we can expect from this new variant. And joining us to share more about the differences between the Delta and Omicron variants, symptoms, and what we can do to stay safe, we welcome infectious disease specialist at Montefiore Medical Group, Dr. Eric A. Meyerowitz. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Rhina. Thank you. Good to be with you today.
Yes. Well, happy, healthy New Year, and may it stay that way for all of us.
Same. Yeah.
Thank you. And so, can we just start with the difference of the variants, because it is a question I think we're all curious to learn about, right? And why are they named? Why do they have different names? Why do both these variants have different names?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's something that a lot of people are thinking about. So importantly, both of these variants are still SARS-CoV-2 virus. So that's the original virus that causes COVID, right? All RNA viruses. So things can either be made up of DNA or RNA. Those are kind of the genetic building blocks of viruses. SARS-CoV-2 is an RNA virus, and it turns out that all RNA viruses mutate. And so over time, they have specific changes to their RNA, to their genetic code, that occur in a random fashion, but ones that give a selective advantage to subsequent viruses can be selected for at a population level. So very early on, it became clear that there were slow changes happening to the SARS-CoV-2 virus. The Delta virus emerged last spring, first in India, and then spread rapidly around the world. And what was notable about that, there were about 13 total mutations, about 9 in the spike protein. So that spike protein, if you can picture the way that the virus is depicted, there's kind of a circle, which is the where the virus is contained, and on the outside you have these kind of Y-shaped spike proteins. Those are the proteins that bind to our cells to get inside. So of the 13 mutations in Delta, there were 9 in the spike protein, and it became clear that Delta was about twice as transmissible as the original virus, meaning twice. If you're twice as likely to pass it on as compared to the original virus. It was also clear that it caused significantly more severe disease, probably because it binds a little bit better to lung tissue, right? The Omicron variant, so whereas Delta has 13 total mutations, about 9 in the spike, the Omicron variant has more than 50 mutations and more than 30 in the spike protein. Okay, so just a very high number of changes, and it's becoming clear, although it's still relatively early. It's becoming clear that Omicron is even more infectious, perhaps about twice as infectious as Delta. Right, so Delta about twice as infectious as the original strain. Omicron maybe about twice as infectious as Delta. And so what we're seeing over the last several weeks, first in South Africa, then in parts of Europe like London, right, and now here throughout the United States, is we're seeing Omicron displace Delta and become the dominant strain.
So, but how are we able to identify that, right? When we're going and we're being tested solely to recognize whether we're either positive or negative, and not really differentiating the two variants.
Yeah, so in the United States, that's not done on an individual basis. So states and the CDC are collecting kind of random samples and are able to determine what is circulating. So it turns out now more than 98% of what is circulating in the U.S. is Omicron. So people getting infected with this virus, that their positive test is just going to say, positive either for COVID or positive for SARS-CoV-2. But pretty much everyone getting infected right now in the United States is infected with Omicron.
So we have, and so why is it that people who are vaccinated and boosted are still contracting Omicron?
So when we think about the protection from vaccines, there's a couple of different ways to think about it. So one is whether there is protection against actual infection, and the second is whether there is protection against severe disease and death, right? So severe disease includes needing to go to the hospital, needing supplemental oxygen, maybe needing to be put on a ventilator, or obviously in the worst case, dying. So it turns out that the vaccines that came out, starting last December, had extremely good protection against all of those things, both for the original strain and then for Delta. So in the protection against overall infection for Delta was around 90%, and then waned over time if you'd been vaccinated several months earlier, which is why the recommendations for boosters started to come out towards the end of the summer. It turns out that the protection against infection for Omicron, particularly if you just have 2 vaccines from either the Moderna or the Pfizer series, is significantly lower. So you probably don't have much protection against overall infection. You do get protection. You do get some protection when you add a booster to that, but it does not rise to the level that you had with Delta. What you still have significant protection against is getting really sick, right? So getting hospitalized, needing supplemental oxygen, or dying. You have protection even with 2 vaccines. That protection is going to be stronger when you get boosted.
Okay, and so how long, how much time should you be allotted for a booster? How much time, from the last vaccination that one's injected, should one get a booster?
Yeah, so this may be changing, and so I think the most important thing to say is that everyone should keep an eye on it as this changes in terms of looking at the news, looking at CDC, speaking with your doctor. The current recommendation is to get a third shot around 5 months after your second shot. Wonderful. So many people were vaccinated right back a year ago, and so if you're in that situation, you're definitely due for a booster, and you should go out and get one as soon as you can.
And so before we go, what should people in the Bronx do to keep their families and friends safe?
I think the most important thing to say is boosting is so important. So the people that we're seeing who are hospitalized right now from Omicron are people who are either unvaccinated or undervaccinated, meaning, one dose or two doses a very, very long time ago. So I can't overstate the importance of that. The other thing is, right, we are still in a period of extremely high community spread. So the same sorts of things that helped prevent the spread of the original strain and of Delta still work for this. So using masks, it's important to say that higher filtration masks, so things like KN95s or N95s are going to provide better protection than cloth masks, probably than surgical masks, ventilation is extremely important, right? So at this point, with such high community prevalence and spread, indoor gatherings where people are unmasked are high risk. If you can move those gatherings outdoors, that makes it safer. If you can't do that and you can open a window, you can help improve ventilation. If you can't do any of those things, then trying to stay masked indoors when you're gathering is the best way to keep you safe.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for all the advice. Thank you for making the time to share this with our viewers. Once again, everyone, that's Dr. Eric A. Meyerowitz, who is the Montefiore's infectious disease specialist. And if you are interested in finding a doctor in your area, you can visit montefiore.org/doctors. And for more information on where to get vaccinated and the booster shot, you can visit finder.nyc.gov. And for information on the Omicron variant, you can visit CDC.gov. All right, so last Sunday, a deadly fire devastatingly took the lives of 19 people, including 9 children at 333 East 181st Street in the Tremont section of the Bronx. Our hearts and prayers go out to victims and families affected, and BronxNet's Arlene Mukoko has more on the story.
A devastating and deadly 5-alarm fire on Sunday is the cause of 19 confirmed deaths that include 9 children here at 333 East 181st Street off Tebow Avenue, where the New York City Fire Department is citing a faulty space heater as the cause, shared Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson here on the scene.
We've learned from the FDNY that the source of this fire was a space heater that was not being used properly in one of the bedrooms of a third-floor apartment, and unfortunately, the fire was allowed to escalate and travel to the higher floors.
The fire making international news, with Archbishop of New York Cardinal Timothy Dolan sharing a message from Pope Francis, sending heartfelt condolences early Monday to the victims and their families in response to the blaze that began sometime before 11 a.m., sending smoke and flames to multiple floors throughout the 19-story complex as over 200 firefighters responded.
32 residents that are still hospitalized with serious injuries. We have a number of residents unaccounted for and unidentified. So we're just praying. We are sending condolences to those that have lost their loved ones, those that have lost children. No one imagined they will wake up a Sunday morning and would be faced with running for their lives because of a fire in their building.
Critical to the rescue were these ladders used to pull many out.
This is a building with no exterior fire escapes, and residents had to exit their apartments and travel using the stairwell, as well as FDNY ladders that were helping.
Displaced families were housed in 4 different hotels in the Bronx Sunday night into Monday morning, thanks to the work of the American Red Cross and the New York City Office of Emergency Management. In addition to this, an evacuation site for families is now operational and is also collecting donations at Monroe College's Houston Hall, located at 2375 Jerome Avenue. The American Red Cross is asking those looking for family members to call 311.
We're praying for those that are in the hospital that they survive. We're praying for healing and strength, and we're going to help with burial funeral services. For those that need to be relocated outside of Twin Parks, we're going to help accommodate that as well.
For BronxNet, this is Arlene Mukoko.
welcome back. So with the latest highly contagious COVID Omicron variant causing nationwide teachers, support staff, and student shortages, we are once again left with the question of whether schools should remain in person or revert back to remote learning. Joining us today to speak about the state of our children's education is the United Federations of Teachers Director of Staff, Anthony Harmon. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me today.
Well, thank you for taking the time, because I know this is a busy time for you nowadays lately. And I mean, I don't mean to be to say that in a joking manner. It's just, you know, as a mom myself, I'm very curious to have this discussion with you regarding the fact that there's an entirely different system in play.
That it is, you know, a entirely different system in where we were in December to now January, right? Part of that is due to the fact that there's a transition in city government. So we have a new mayor, a new chancellor, who have said that they wanted the schools to remain open. So during this transition, we were able to, as the United Federation of Teachers, to go in and make sure that our teachers are working in safe, you know, environments. Our working conditions are our children's learning conditions. And we wanted to make sure that everyone was safe throughout this process. If schools were to remain open, initially there was conversations that we had that maybe asked that we consider, you know, delaying the opening of school in January and the like. But once the mayor and the chancellor made the decision that schools are going to be open, you know, fully open in January when we return from Christmas break, the conversation shifted to say that if they are going to be open, we need to make sure that these safety parameters are put in place. In December, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. No. It's just, I know you're representing the teachers, but you're also, I want to make sure that people understand that that you also serve the school and the children and the parents in representing and speaking on our behalf, because really we're all in this together, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And before we got on camera, we discussed 3 different things that I want to make sure our viewers are aware of, and how they can also participate and be proactive in loaning their voices to the movement of basically being a voice for the children.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just a couple of quick things, you know, so one of the things that we're able to advocate when we open back up in January is that that they needed to increase the number of people that are tested in the schools. So every week, you know, there's testing in the school. In December, under the old city administration, they only tested 10% of the student population. We told them that they had to double increase that number. So now 20% of those students are being tested in any given school a week. One of the things where I think parents can get involved and help is that if we are sending their children to school, make sure that they sign the consent forms to have their children tested. It's real important, because if the testing company comes in to test and 70% of the kids don't have consent forms, they're not testing all of those kids. So we need parents to understand how important it is that they sign the consent form to have the children tested. So that was the first thing that we were able to advocate. The second piece was that if we want the schools open, that they needed to have the appropriate masks available inside the schools. The KN95s or the N95 masks, that they needed to be available inside our school system. And the third thing was that we wanted to have these rapid tests available to kids. So if there's a potential or possible exposure, that the test could be distributed to the kids to take home, and that the parents could administer the exams. And if there's a positive case, then they will quarantine their child, right? So those were some of the things that we were kind of negotiated and put into place, so that they are going to open up these schools. This is what needs to happen.
And so, yeah, no, which is good. I mean, I've already experienced it. I'm just curious to know, like, I mean, this is probably not your area of expertise, but this whole initiative of, like, if somebody tests positive within the school and somebody might have been exposed to it, but might not, or protected because they have masks, and then they get sent home with the test kit. And, you know, if they test negative, they get to go back in school. So it's kind of like, you know, how do we move forward with this being a factor? I want to say, being a mom from a public school, you know, there's no what do you call, like, protective shields on the desk. You know, I know that you've also implemented a petition to just make the class sizes smaller, meaning the amount of students within each class. So I guess really what I'm trying to ask is, like, if anyone is watching right now, how can they become proactive in moving this forward with the reality of knowing that this thing is here and we're still dealing with it?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you brought up the issue of smaller class sizes, because we sent out, when we did a petition towards the ending of the 2021 school year, where we were asking parents and community groups and representatives from our clergy and faith-based institutions to sign a petition to say that we need to lower class sizes. In New York City, our class sizes average anywhere from 28 to 36 kids in a classroom, right? Which is already overcrowded. Just imagine if there's an outbreak in a particular classroom, you have 36 kids that are particularly exposed. And if we had smaller class sizes, right, maybe it's 18, I mean, well, we could kind of limit the number of kids or limit the number of people that might be potentially exposed to the virus. So the petition went out and we had thousands upon thousands of people to sign it. However, the previous administration, the chair of the speaker for the city council, didn't bring it for a vote. There's a new chair now, and I'm going with my hopes and not my fears that this new speaker, Adrienne Adams, that she takes this, up, as a real issue and work to get these class sizes lowered in New York City. I think the last time that these class sizes were lowered or even discussed was, during the time of the tuberculosis pandemic. And now we have another pandemic, and we're still putting 36 kids. And in some places, if you're in a music or an art class, it's 50 kids in a particular classroom. That's a lot of people in one room in the middle of this pandemic. So it's another thing, another way that the community and our parents can get involved. The petition is on our website, www.uft.org. They can go onto our website, they can sign a petition, and the more people that we have there, the more numbers, the more pressure that we can apply, to the city council to take this issue up. There are a lot more new city council members, that have kind of pledged that they would support an initiative like lowering class sizes. So I think now is the time to get involved and to do something. So if people want to get involved, I mean, and these are like, a simple ask, going on to the UFT website and signing that petition to get the class sizes lowered. The other piece is I'm strongly encouraging parents, please sign the consent forms for your children. And the third thing is, like, please, let's get our kids vaccinated. We all know that vaccinations are not 100% effective, so we all heard that. However, we are following the science, and we're seeing that, kids and people that are vaccinated and boosted, the effects of the virus are less critical if the person is not vaccinated. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think, the idea is that, yes, it is. It has a lesser impact, right? I mean, right. Yeah, the symptoms are not as critical, we'll say, right? And what the specialist prior to this segment was sharing with us. And so, but the point is that we need to operate as a community, and we're so grateful to you for the work that you do, and your interest in preserving the next generation and making sure that our kids are learning in a safe environment, and a healthy environment, at that. And so before we go, I do want to just mention, because I think it's important that our viewers understand that at this particular time, it's crucial to sign this petition, because the funds are there to do it. And that's also a factor.
And the funds are there. The federal government has put more money into education, so the funds are there. It only requires the will of the people. The funds are there, so there's no reason why we can't do this right now.
Right, exactly. And on top of that, it also falls into the category of it being an equity issue, because, they learn better in the smaller classrooms.
Right, exactly. And I also feel that there's nothing replaced in-person instruction, right? Well, and while I understand and I respect people's rights and opinions, that I want to keep my child home, I want to make, I respect all of that. I will say that as a teacher, and I taught for almost 20 years in a high school in Manhattan prior to joining the staff at the union, nothing replaces in-person instruction.
Yeah.
That human contact, nothing replaces that.
Right, exactly. Social growth is also part of their development. Thank you so much for being here with us. Director of Staff of United Federations of Teachers, Anthony Harmon. You guys, for more information on safety updates as schools remain open, please visit uft.org. And to sign the petition for smaller classroom sizes, please visit uft.org/ourkidsneed. All right, we have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll learn about personal empowerment through home healing. Don't go anywhere. Hey, everyone, welcome back. So before the pandemic, our homes were a space for comfort and peace. And well, now it's become a workplace. And for some, a place of isolation and loneliness. And so our next guest is a transformational guide home healer and interior designer who joins us today to speak about realigning our home and amplifying the energy of our space through cleansing and empowering practices. Please welcome back to the show, Rebecca Gitana Torres. Hello, welcome.
I'm so happy to be here yet again. Hi, everybody.
Oh gosh, it's such a pleasure to have you on at the top of the year with all of these wonderful clubs that you've formulated to assist us all. I mean, we're all going through this really interesting transitional period of just reflecting, I want to say. It's very reflective lately.
Yeah, absolutely. The pandemic has brought us all inside, and we can't really distract ourselves too much with brunches, with shopping, with just being, up and down. And we are in our homes. We are surrounded with the good, the bad, and everything in between. And right now is a really great time for us to reclaim our space and to reimagine how we're living.
And the funny thing is that as I opened, we've all like compartmentalized our homes so that we kind of feel that we're in a different space. At least that's what I've done with my space, right? And we all have New York apartments which aren't necessarily big, and so after being in that space for almost 2 years now and working alongside coworkers and having to just shift rooms and shift cameras and shift lights, after a while, it becomes it becomes impersonal.
Yeah, our homes are shifting their energies. And so while it can feel really impersonal, even invasive, we can definitely take this time though to shift things around and to make our home work for us. So a real quick tip is don't be afraid to redefine your living space. And maybe your dining room nook now becomes a sleeping nook. Maybe your kitchen with the good window for the Zoom lighting, maybe that becomes your corner office. Don't be afraid to redefine the space you have, because when you do that, you actually find more nooks and spaces to live in.
That's a really great tip, because you also shift the energy of the space. And I know that one of the things that you live by is that the home also has its own personality.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Our home, it's a living and breathing thing as I look around my space. And I've been in my space for almost 20 years. And so when I can think back at all the different incarnations that my space has had, all of the different lifetimes, it's really incredible. And yeah, it's something to, even if you've been in your space for a year, 10 years, your environment has its own energy and you bring your energy to it. And it's like this interesting relationship and dynamic that happens. So don't be afraid to talk to your walls, to talk to your front door, to talk to your windows, your floors. Like, it's a real relationship. And when you really tap into that energy, it's incredible how much more support you will feel and even inspiration to create the life that you want.
Which now leads me to this wonderful show that you just created called Healing Through the Home. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I birthed Healing Through the Home throughout the pandemic. It was shot here in my mothership where I reside. And it was birthed out into the world this summer. And the show is an incredible 1-hour medley of what it means to heal your home, like all the basics, like what does healing your home even mean? How do you heal your home? How do you incorporate spiritual cleansing practices? How do you use color to change your mood, to bring harmony into your life? How do you incorporate plants and their medicine to help you improve your outlook, to help you feel more grounded and connected to nature, and so much more? It's such a great show. Oh, and at the end, there's even a family meditational moment that you can experience. So whether you're 5 years old or 55, whether you're your first time meditating or you're a seasoned meditator, you're going to be able to tap in at the end and hang out with me and learn like how to make these cosmic connections. I love that.
That's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I mean, I think that's where we are right now, in just like you're saying, you know, redefining ourselves in our space, right? And so, I mean, I know you were talking about redefining the space, but it's also redefining ourselves and our relationship to the space. And I know you have these amazing online clubs, or what are you're calling them, gatherings, that are also part of your programming. So let's talk about them, so that if anyone's interested in getting a one-on-one with you, they know how to go about participating and becoming part of your movement. I'm calling it a movement anyway.
It is a movement. When we reclaim ourselves, when we reclaim our lives, our homes, it is a movement, because it translates into everything else we do. How we're loving, how we're relating to one another, how we're working in the world, the type of work that we want to do in the world, how we value ourselves and just like manage our energy and our magic. So absolutely. So to accompany the show and to accompany all the work that I'm doing, we have a few online gatherings that are going on for this month of January. We had an incredible YouTube live that everyone can tap into, which is all about, you know, we create vision boards. We've been taught, oh, create a vision board, right? But in this YouTube live, we actually talk about how your home is the actual vision board. So check that out. And then we have an online gathering happening this Saturday called the Clutter Free Club. So if you have been holding on to things in your life and you don't know how to let go or where to start, then you definitely want to join in this Saturday. It's a 90-minute self-empowerment community gathering where we talk about clutter and actually make those connections with our clutter and the parts of our lives that are also stagnant. So it's very insightful. It helps you to really understand like why we keep things, the energy that things hold. And it's really exciting.
I mean, decluttering is where it's at. That's where it all begins. It's almost like scooping out the gook of what's holding you back. And just to be clear, when she said Saturday, she meant January 15th. Yes. Just so that people know that it's, and we did mention the time. I know you go live on YouTube, so I don't know if people want to participate in that interactive aspect of it. And I know it'll be accessible to them afterwards, but is there a particular time you go live?
Everything will be always announced on my Instagram. So be sure to follow me at Rebecca Gitana and you can be in on what's going on. And yeah, the Clutter Club is going to be happening like once a month. So it'll be happening this Saturday, the 15th. And then going forward, it'll continue to happen. And then I'm also offering one-on-ones. So if you're like, girl, I really need you to sit with me and help me, I do virtual, also one-on-ones and in person too.
I got to tell you, I've been purging since I want to say since my birthday in December, and I'm still purging. And the reason I'm doing it so slowly is because I'm not purging just because it's a ritualistic thing to do. And that's not where I'm at. It's almost like, I'm glad we're having this conversation. I'm purging from this perspective of recognizing, like, you know, why am I holding on to this? Like, I'm never really going to use this again. Like, what is that attachment? So it's lovely that you're offering these services. It really is.
And it's a powerful practice because when you learn to let go of the things you've been clinging on to, you also start to reflect on other things in your life, the intangible things like people, like thoughts and emotions and habits that you're also clinging on to. And you create this cycle of like, letting go of the claws and releasing. And when we release things, it's incredible what actually comes forward next.
Absolutely, because you're making space. That's the whole point of it. Now, before we go, because we're running out of time, we got to mention the other two clubs because you have like a whole, I want to say like a weekly, or no, not necessarily, because the Cocoon of Transformation is on January 17th, but I'm going to let you explain that to us.
So the Kakuna Transformation is a gathering that's been happening for over 2 years now. And this is a place for you to get into your cocoon and to get into some rituals and some spiritual practices that will help you to get ready for the next phase. This cocoon, the category is expansion. So learn.
That's awesome. It's appropriate, right? Because if you're going to be making room, what are you making room for? Expansion. Nice.
And so what does that mean to make space in your life? What does that mean to release and to relax into your space, to enlarge your energetic territory? We're going to get into all of that. And then the last gathering that's happening is the Garden Club. And the Garden Club is all about teaching you how to grow your green thumb, the power of hanging out with your plant allies and all of that good stuff. And in each club, we go into different types of meditations and practices. So it's really empowering, interactive, and you're going to walk away having new skills and be really inspired.
As she sits on the throne amongst her plant family.
Yes, they're all here.
You go, Queen. Go, Queen. Congratulations on all, and thank you for being of service to our community. Rebecca Gitana Torres. Once again, you guys, you can watch Healing Through the Home on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Android TV. And for more information on how to watch and participate in her online gatherings, you can visit RebeccaGitana.com and check her out on Instagram at Rebecca Gitana. All right, stay tuned because Bobby C's Weekly Sports Roundup is coming up next.
Our guest this morning is from the Lone Star State, but he'll be bringing his Texas grit and stardom to New York in the month of January. We welcome in professional bull rider standout Cooper Davis. Cooper, what's up, my man? How's it going?
It's going good, man. Glad to be in New York.
Excited to see you here on the show with us this morning. The PBR is set to return to Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena. What can fans expect to see at MSG on January 7th and the 8th?
You're going to see the top bull riders in the world, along with a full 2.5 hours of entertainment. I mean, there's never going to be a time where you're not laughing or, at least entertained in some way. It's the best bulls in the world and best bull riders in the world. So there's a lot to see.
100%. Our Bronx Net cameras covered the 2020 event in person. The PBR is something that I tell fans that you have to see in person to do it justice. I mean, honestly, Cooper, I feel like the experience combines so many sports. How would you explain that atmosphere and what it's like for you to compete in such a dangerous sport?
I think you nailed it. I mean, whenever you're going head to head with a 2,000-pound bull, there's not much that couldn't be entertaining to watch. And these bulls are athletes as well. And, whenever you're having to battle that out against guys that want to win and want to win just as bad as you do, it's going to be a lot of fun to see.
In fact, that 2020 season saw your season and career threatened inside of MSG. You were ranked number 5 in the world and fractured your neck after bucking off of Midnight Rock in 2.79 seconds. What was that recovery process like for you?
It was a long process. For about the first 6 months, I was in a neck brace and wasn't able to do as much as I wanted to. And, but started working out again in May and was back riding bulls in August and feel better than ever.
So you end up taking the remainder of the first half of that season off. And then you come back really with a vengeance after the injury. You take your PBR's Premier Series by storm. You finish inside the top 10 in 2 of the first 3 events after coming back, and you end up winning in Nebraska en route to the World Finals. That must have felt great after being, pretty much a life-threatening injury.
Yeah, it did. Whenever you have an injury like that, you can do one of 2 things. You can either hang it up or you can rededicate yourself, and that's what I did. Coming off the injury, it really just motivated me to be the best I could be at that point, and put a lot of work, a lot of hard times in the gym just to get back to where I am, and it's paid off.
So that's kind of a flashback here on the show to the 2020 season, but you end up we want to talk a little bit more about 2021 and get us to 2022. You carry that momentum from 2020 into 21, and you end up fighting for the world championship. You held the #1 ranking for 5 weeks during the season, rising up as high as #3. Statistically, 2021 might have been your best, so either 2021 or maybe 2015 when you win the World Finals. Do you think this past season was your best ever? And can we see more, even more, from Cooper Davis in 2022?
Yeah, statistically last year, 2021 was my best season. I rode 53% of my bulls, which if you can ever ride over 50% of your bulls, it's a great year. But between that year and 2016, 2015, those 3 years right there, they stand out to me as my best years in my career so far. But 2020, I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do with that, increase that riding percentage even a little bit more past that. So I'm looking forward to it.
So Cooper, you've been ranked top 10 annually since 2015. What are your career goals in the sport moving forward?
I would say win another world title. That's going to be at the top of my list. It all starts right here in New York, but winning these major events like New York, that's a good way to start off a year and really make a push for another world title.
We had Colton Jesse on a couple of years ago when we were covering the event, and some of the things that him and I spoke about is just that so many people don't know about the sport. So if you could walk us through how you got into the sport and then what it takes to stay in shape for the sport and what that process is like, so that maybe the fans at home that have never been exposed to it can kind of get an idea what PBR is all about.
Yeah, this sport is very similar and a lot different than other sports in the same aspect. So we all grew up wanting to ride bulls. As a 5-year-old kid, I was watching the PBR on my TV, and I just knew that that's what I wanted to do, but I couldn't talk my parents into it until I was about 12 or 13. My sister married a guy that rode bulls professionally, and that was my way of talking my parents into letting me do it. And from 12, 13, 14, I started getting on bulls, better bulls, and by the time I was 18, I knew I was good enough to make a career out of it. And there's a lot of hard work, a lot of practice. The only way to practice is to get on bulls. So, and a lot of time in the gym.
So, Cooper, was your first venture into Madison Square Garden as part of the PBR, or had you been to the Garden before for maybe some other events, whether it was Rangers or the Knicks or even some other single event at MSG?
Yeah, no, my first time at MSG was riding with a PBR, and you want to talk about a feeling of nerves whenever you walk in there and just know that you're in a building so iconic. And it was a crazy feeling. I still get it every time I walk in.
Since we have you here on the show with us this morning, might as well ask you then, since you haven't been to the Garden for anything else, are there any other sports outside of bull riding that you're a really big fan of? And if so, which teams and which sports?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of football. I've always been a Dallas Cowboys fan. And, as far as I got to go to a basketball game last night at MSG, so that's going to be at the top of my list of other sports that I've gotten to witness. And, it was a crazy experience.
Being a Cowboys fan, this has definitely been a good year for that. I know being here in New York, I'm sure a lot of those other fans of other teams have kind of taken to almost making fun of both New York football teams, except for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, no, it's been a great year to be a Cowboys fan. So, it's since about the '95 Cowboys, this is as good as they've looked in a long time.
Cooper, a couple more questions before we let you go. Just wanted to kind of reiterate, in your opinion, what, aside from actually, I guess, being immersed in the sport and trying to kind of indicate to someone that would be a novice coming to the sport, what would be the best part of the entire experience? Because I know that the PBR tries to combine a lot of things. And again, it's kind of like the big secret of trying to get people involved in a sport, especially in certain areas like the Northeast, where it's not as popular, but you guys come into town, you also come into New Jersey, New York. And when I was there in 2020, had a huge crowd for the event.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing is you don't have to have a cowboy hat to come to a PBR event. A lot of guys outside of PBR really aren't too cowboy. I mean, myself, I live on a half an acre, and I wear skinny jeans half the time. So, no, I mean, it's well-rounded. Anybody can come. The family's welcome. There's something that everybody can watch and take away from it in a positive way.
And a final question, it would be, who's biggest competition for you? I guess lay out, what fans could expect to see, because, in the top of the world rankings and some of the competitors that you'll be facing and some of the tough tasks that you have ahead coming up on this season.
Yeah, so Kayiki Pacheco, he's always at the top of the list. And Jose Vitor Leme, that's the guy that won the world title last year, and a young kid named Mason Taylor that's really coming along here. That's going to be the biggest competition, I think, all year long. And but the biggest thing is I just have to worry mostly about myself and keep all that, in the peripheral vision.
No, of course. I mean, that's what it's all about. Well, Cooper, thank you for taking the time with us here this morning, and fans can head on over to pbr.com for more information on the schedule, on the events, and of course to purchase tickets at MSG. Appreciate the time, Cooper. Always great to catch up, and do your best at MSG. Hope that you win.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Open. Our last guests are the legendary Bronx hip-hop dance company, Full Circle Souljahs, founded in 1992, established as a nonprofit in 97 by Quick Step and Rockefeller. Full Circle provides a space for hip-hop, DJs, b-boys and b-girls, beatboxers, MCs, and dancers of diverse ethnic backgrounds. Members who range in ages from teens to early 50s help create a network of interactive empowerment for elders and youth alike. And Full Circle Productions recently announced their awarded grant from the Ford Foundation to support their creation of the United Hip Hop Vanguard, a reintroduction to breaking as an art form and social exchange that happens organically at jams. And here to tell us more are the founders of Full Circle Souljahs, that is, the legends themselves, Quick Step and Rockefeller. We got to do the scratch, imitate, like verbal
right. Thank you, Rhina. So happy to be on your show, be in connection with you and your audience. What's up? What's up? I'm Rockefeller.
Gosh, you guys are like the power couple of the century. Right. We just started a new century. And as far as I'm concerned, you as a couple, as a working couple, being married for what? How many years you guys are married now?
22 years, and we've been together 28 years.
28. Yep. It's love and hip hop on the real.
Right.
Yeah, it's not what you see on TV. If you want to see what love and hip hop, one of many examples, just follow us for a week and you see what it takes to be in love and within hip hop.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah. He gets a point today.
He does. He got the dates right and everything. I love it. But we're there for hip hop, and hip hop has been there for us. And so it's a very good symbiotic type of relationship that we have. So,
and let's be clear, not the commercial hip hop, but the cultural hip hop, which is something that you can see in the neighborhoods all around New York City. Hip hop culture is a New York native thing that has been able to uplift spirits around the planet. And that's a different thing than what you see commercially, for sure.
Right. So let's talk about the United Hip Hop Vanguard, right? Because there's this cultural preservation that you guys are basically making sure is established so that it's understood before, breaking makes its way into the Olympics.
Right, which is a good thing. We are definitely not against breaking being presented by the Olympics. What we are in favor of is making sure that the cultural aspects, the influences, the roots, present day, players and people who are participating and contributing does not get lost. So we don't want the erasing or the erasure that typically happens when a culture gets presented in a mainstream platform. We don't want that to happen. And so we're doing our best to provide information and knowledge to all who are interested, but in particular, the practitioners. So the dancers, the breakers themselves should have access to the history, the roots, have a generational dialogue, be able to understand their place in the ecosystem, have connections to local organizations, and be able to feel healthy enough to branch out if they need to at some point, from breaking and competing into other ways of expressing their creativity.
Tell me a little bit about how the United Hip Hop Vanguard started and when.
Well, in response to the murder of George Floyd in 2020, some of the leaders of breaking nationwide started to come together on Zoom to kind of express the disappointment, the frustration. And before you know it, we started having Zoom meetings every Wednesday since June 17th of 2020. And it went all the way throughout the entire year into the winter, where people were starting to say, hey, well, we have this trouble also with the erasure of Blackness and the culture itself. And how do we fix it? And what can we put some suggestions and recommendations forward? And before you know it, then the name came about. Everybody voted on what would we call this collective, United Hip Hop Vanguard. And before you know it, 5 points, call to action. And before you know it, recommendations of how we can help to recenter culture into these events and into these competitions. And so, you know, Quickstep and I were like, well, we feel like this is a good project to propose to the Ford Foundation. And so if it wasn't for that work put in, nationally from these leaders who are already putting in the work, or just feeling that something's not, you know, out of balance with all these contests. If it wasn't for that work, this proposal definitely would not have emerged.
And so quick, who are these leaders that she's referencing? Like,
so,
from?
So the ones who were the people who started it were myself, Rockefeller, and Asia One from California. And then we had people from Arizona. We had people from, Chicago. And, these were the people who were joining in to making sure to support our vision. And, it was a collective consciousness. You know what I mean? And, the ones who are pushing it forward are myself, Rock, and Asia One. But it's not just us. We have the support of the whole community. And when we told the Ford Foundation of what we're embarking on, they absolutely wanted to support. Now, you know how it is. When fire first starts, everybody comes to cook. But to keep the fire going, then people fall to the side. But that's okay, because somebody has to keep the fire going, and that's what we're doing. And the United Hip Hop Vanguard is not just 3 people. It's a collective consciousness of a community that's in need. And that's what we're here for.
It sounds to me, in essence, that this Hip Hop Vanguard is not only a space of archival, it's also a space of mentorship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's both. It's both. I think that what has worked for Quickstep and myself here in New York City all these years, it's preserving and evolving. So we are working with the history and the foundation, the blueprint that was laid down by people from the 70s, and then embracing the young generation in their manifestation of hip hop dance, but just connecting the two. So one doesn't exist without the other. And I think that helps the generation from before to feel like they're still contributing, and the new generation to feel like they're being accepted, they're being embraced. And that's what we need. We just like for mental health purposes, we need to feel loved. And
yes,
so that's been missing.
We all need to feel like we're a contribution, right? Everybody wants to be recognized. Everybody wants to feel appreciated.
Right. And I think when we go into a commercial realm, there's that disposable sense that it's weird. It comes in, it's like, okay, next. Okay, we don't need you. Okay, been there, saw that. No, especially I'm still here.
The ageism, especially when it comes to ageism.
Yeah. And I think young people at 22 or 25 start to feel that weird. Then they're not even like, they're not even in their 40s or 30s, but they're starting to feel like, okay, flavor of the month, you're done. Bye. We need the next 18-year-old. And so, how do we protect these young creatives from that feeling that could be very destructive and harmful, cause anxiety and depression? How do we save that? Well, we provide alternative, ways to be creative and expand and extend your career.
And that's what's up. And I just want to congratulate you both on this grant that's been awarded, and the means in which you're using it and providing service to the next generation and even the generation before, because the idea really is that we all come together and find our similarities within our differences, while holding, I guess, the commercial world accountable for just taking the byproduct and just creating something that is commercially appealing. I don't know if that's the proper term, but it's really a matter of holding on to the integrity of the art form, and we acknowledge you for making it your life, your art, and your relationship with each other and abroad. It's beautiful and admirable. And you're both an inspiration, and I can't say it enough. Congratulations, and thank you, Ford Foundation, for assisting them on their quest. Legendary Quick Step and Rockefeller, founders of Full Circle Soldiers and Full Circle Productions. I think I said that right?
Yes, you did.
And now at the United Hip Hop Vanguard. No fuimos. All right, don't go anywhere, because guess what? When we return, Full Circle's gonna perform for us next. Hey everyone, welcome back. Here now to perform are the Full Circle Souljahs. Just get on the floor and dance? Yeah. All right, you guys, for more on Full Circle Soldiers, be sure to check them out at fullcirclesoldiers.com and follow them on Instagram at Full Circle Soldiers. That is our show today, mi gente. Thanks to all our guests for coming through, and to you, our viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of the show, you can check out the recablecast tonight, 24 hours a day, at bronxnet.tv. I'm Rhina Valentin, and from all of us here at Open, may the universe provide paz, prosperity, y amor.